Hi everyone. I was back in school this week. It was really great to see some of you, and I'm sure you're really glad to see your friends from a distance of 2 meters, of course, and catch up with some of your subjects. Everybody who I taught said, "Oh, can we have a video on the end of Frankenstein?" Pretty much, because that was a lesson that we missed before lockdown. So I'm going to do it now. If you haven't read the end of Frankenstein, if what you did was you just went onto SparkNotes or something, please pause the video right now and read it. I'm going to provide you with a link to it, so you don't even have to get your book from under your bed if you've just logged on and you haven't got the book. Pause now and read it, and come back when you've read it, because we're going to look at some of the language. Okay, so if you've paused and you've read it, let's get on with it. Okay, so where in the novel are we? Chapter 24 is the resolution. So when you're writing about it, you can use that term resolution, and it's the end of everything. Now, in Frankenstein, I always feel there's 2 plot arcs, because you've got Victor's, which is the main one, but inside it, when the creature tells his story, you've got the creatures. So Victor talks about his childhood, then he talks about him gaining knowledge to create the creature, then the creature kills everyone and it all goes wrong, and then he hunts down the creature on the ice, and this is the end. But with the creature, you get, when he tells his story inside the novel, you get a mini novel. The creature is created and has no words. The creature learns from the DeLaceys. The creature gets really angry and burns down the cottage and runs away and gets miserable and starts killing everyone. And then the creature is going over the ice with Victor. So there's like a mini novel within a novel there. But in any case, for both of them, here we are in chapter 24. It's the resolution of the novel. It's where everything ends. And of course, we're back with Walton as well, because the novel is Walton's letter to his sister. Which brings us on to useful words to use when you're talking about and writing about this. The first one is epistolary, which is written as a letter. If you ever get stuck in an exam, just say written as a letter. It's really important because it reminds us, this is Victor's life story, but he's talking to Walton. And Walton has a very particular dilemma. Will Walton learn from the story and not kill people for science? Or will Walton not learn from the story? And to what extent has Victor even learned from the story? And we'll find out about that later. Cyclical structure. So the novel starts and ends in exactly the same place, in Walton's cabin in his ship. And he's talking to Victor, and Victor's about to die. Exactly the same time and place. It was all told in flashback. And then you've got mirroring, doppelganger, and foil. All these words are words for, sorry, my cursor keeps disappearing, for characters who reflect each other in some way, who are similar in some way. We've got 3 characters, and they all reflect. And the apex of it, the character that they all reflect back on, is Victor Frankenstein himself. So Walton is like Victor Frankenstein because he's like young Victor before he makes the big mistake. And the creature has carried this huge journey through him, where they're both kind of like 2 sides of the same coin. You know, they've both had their families destroyed. Victor destroyed the creature's hope of, love and family. The creature destroyed Victor's family. They're both rejected. They're both miserable. They learned knowledge, but they hated it. And they both on a very similar journey. So this idea of foils and doppelgangers, it's really big in Gothic literature. It comes from German folklore, where there's a belief that you have a ghost that looks exactly like you, and if you ever see it, your doom is coming. But you also hear stories of people who look exactly like somebody and had mysteriously the same life. There are lots of other novels that have this in that are also Gothic, and this would be context of reception, because these were written after. So maybe these writers read Frankenstein and were inspired. So Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I would say Robert Louis Stevenson must have read Frankenstein. It's a story about a scientist who wants to make people better by giving them a potion that will clean out all their evil, except when you take the potion, what happens is you spend a portion of time being purely evil and then a portion of time being purely good. So that's like Dr. Jekyll is the good guy, and then he turns into the monster Mr. Hyde. And as the novel progresses, Dr. Jekyll's trying to fix it by doing more and more science rather than letting it lie. And in the end, Mr. Hyde becomes permanent. So that kind of like, you can see that evil scientist, good scientist dilemma is inspired by Frankenstein. And Oscar Wilde wrote a book called The Portrait of Dorian Gray, which is really similar but through art. So a man paints a magical portrait. The magical portrait means that he can do what he wants. He can take drugs, he can fight, he can drink, he can murder, and he will always look aged about 25, handsome, respectable, and this painting will turn into like an evil, violent, psychopathic, homeless guy's painting. And it's about someone who flees from their responsibilities. They want to do with it, things without responsibilities. Again, context of reception, that means the context of someone who's read the book. Was Oscar Wilde inspired by those early Gothic stories? Now, these are some examples of what you can talk about where Victor and the monster are doppelgangers or foils. So, knowledge. They both seek knowledge, but it causes them great pain. Freedom. They want to be free, and they hope that certain things will make them free, but it doesn't always work that way. And responsibility. In both cases, they actually do bad things based on their emotions. They leave their responsibilities behind, and it causes them great pain later. I'm not going to read all this out. Just pause it, write it down on your novel, take notes of these are the things that make them doppelgangers, foils, reflections of each other. Okay, so now let's get to Victor at the end. So at this point, Victor is about to die, and he's warning Walton about the creature. And he talks about how he's feeling. And if this goes over 15 minutes, because that's my limit on YouTube, I will put some more analysis in a future video. So this he says about the creature. He is eloquent and persuasive, and once his words had even power over my heart, but trust him not. Could you equally say that about Victor? He credits this creature with a lot of intelligence. Remember at the start he thought it was a monster, but now he realizes he's a human, but he's so angry. His soul is as hellish as his form. Now that he condemns him, but he kind of says he has a soul, which tells us finally, although he hates him, he has realized that this is not a creature, this is a human. It is a human he hates. It is an angry human, but that word soul tells us he has accepted the creature is a human. His soul is as hellish as his form, full of treachery and fiend-like malice. Of course, we can dig deep into the psychology. Where did this treachery come from? His own father, Victor. Hear him not. Call on the names of William, Justine, Clerval, Elizabeth, my father, and of the wretched Victor, and thrust your sword into his heart. So he's very weak, and he's asking Walton to kill the creature. He's asking Walton to carry on his quest. Is there this history with Victor where there's two sides here? Firstly, Victor always used to be secretive and he didn't call on his family to support him, and now he's calling on someone to support him. So there's that character development, but equally it's kind of like he's still asking other people to do his dirty work for him. He's still not taking responsibility. I will hover near and direct the steel aright. So is that his spirit or literally him telling him to? But here you've got a lot of this kind of confused dilemmas to do with Victor. Is he taking responsibility, or is he asking someone else to clean up his problems for him still? And there's that list, which is enormously powerful for explaining the reason for his hate. That whole list of people who were killed. And then he says, well, the wretched Victor. He talks about himself as a victim in the third person. That's where it starts to get a bit weaker. That's where he's an unreliable narrator. He should talk about himself in the first person, because he is the cause of his creature becoming psychopathic and disturbed. And maybe he should reflect on that. And then, you've got, he says to Walton not to try to find the pole. Are you mad, my friend, said he, or whither does your senseless curiosity lead you? And that quote, senseless curiosity, It's an oxymoron, the intelligence of curiosity next to stupidity and senselessness. But that's what it is. It's being very intelligent in one way and being very stupid in another way. So senseless curiosity sums up Victor having learned his lesson. Would you also create for yourself and the world a demoniacal enemy? Peace, peace. Learn my miseries and do not seek to increase your own. So he's talking about here not making his mistakes. And he sums it up by saying, I am chained to an eternal hell. So you know about when the creature says he's like Lucifer cast down into hell. This is another mirroring where Victor, while he's lying there on the bed having told his story, says he's the one in chains in hell. He's the one who's like Prometheus, who stole fire from the god and got chained up and attacked by a bird for eternity. Or he's like Lucifer, who reached too far and got cast into hell. Walton is listening and he's kind of reflecting on himself. So you can get some quotes from this bit. He says, he's writing to his sister, I write to you encompassed by peril and ignorant of whether I am ever doomed to see again dear England and the dearer friends that inhabit it. So like Victor, he's like, will I see my family again? Resulting from his obsession with science. I am surrounded by mountains of ice which admit no escape and threaten every moment to crush my vessel. So you've got a symbolism of ice and mountains, which we've seen at many pressure points in the novel. There's the sublime and the danger of ice and the coldness of ice. The brave fellows whom I have persuaded to be my companions look towards me for aid, but I have none to bestow. There is something terribly appalling in our situation, yet my courage and hopes do not desert me. Yet it is terrible. You've got this yet on the other hand. He's always rushing ahead with his brain. Yet it is terrible to reflect that the lives of these men are endangered through me. Now that's crucial. He's got a bit more insight than Victor. The men are endangered through him. If we are lost, my mad schemes are the cause. Now that's a good quote to learn off by heart. If we are lost, my mad schemes are the cause. He is recognizing he's at that cusp of is he going to make the right choice. But then again, it could be too late. Now it looks like I might have to continue with this lesson paused, but we'll finish the quotes and then I'll do a second lesson and send it out. So Frankenstein, another quote, because he seems to have learnt his lesson, but has he? Because later in this chapter, all of the sailors come into Walton and they're like, we need to go home. This is ridiculous. We might die, but spring's coming. If the ice breaks, we've got to go home. And Frankenstein, with his last strength, leaps off his bed and says, what do you mean? What do you demand of your captain? Are you then so easily turned from your design? Did you not call this a glorious expedition? And wherefore was it glorious? Look at all those questions again and again and again. He sounds like really angry. Those multiple questions. Sounds like when he's in one of his rages. You were hereafter to be hailed as benefactors to your species. He's using the same argument that he did before about species, humanity thanking. And now behold, with the first imagination of danger. It's not an imagination. They really are all going to die. He's totally, like he always is, unaware of the true dangers. Ye need not to have come thus far and dragged your captain to the shame of defeat. Real emotional blackmail, merely to prove yourselves cowards. He's insulting them. It's awful. Their captain is killing them. It is real dangerous. They are not cowards. Oh, be men or more than men. Do not return to your families with the stigma of disgrace marked on your brows. Return as heroes who have fought and conquered, who know not what it is to turn their backs on the foe. That line really shows his inability to understand. Yeah? He's talked about don't go too far, and now at the first sniff of science again, he's like, I'm going too far again. So I'm going to pause that now, and I'll carry on with the lesson in a minute. So go back to your books, highlight these, and annotate them. So I'll pause. I've got a few more quotes to talk about.